Hello, I believe we are ready to create some blocks. So I am in our floor plan that we've been using, and I need to create a block. And you're asking, well, what is a block? Well, actually, we have used it, or you have used it probably in the past. This right here, this bed, notice it says a block reference, and its name is a bed queen size. And then also, this toilet is also a block that we used from actually our tool palette. So we have been using blocks, but now we want to create one. And basically, to tell you what a block is it's a collection of lines and other objects into one entity. So to create, well, not to create, but if we wanted to draw a toilet every single time we needed to use a toilet in our drawings, that would take a lot of time to create all these arcs, to create all these lines. But notice it is one single object that I can move around, I can rotate, um, and it's just a series of those lines and arcs and objects within one single entity. So that's what we want to do is we want to create a block. First thing we want to do is make sure we're on layer 0. I'm on layer dim at the moment, so I'm going to make sure I'm on layer 0. The reason is if I create a block in layer 0, then I can insert it into any layer that I want to. If I create it in a certain layer, then it's always going to be on that layer. That wouldn't help me if I needed it to be on different layers per the project I'm using, especially within a firm where they want you to use specific layers. So I'm going to make sure I'm on layer 0. And then I'm going to draw the layer. So I'm actually going to move over here out of the way of the drawing. And I want to create something that I want to use over and over again. So first, let's draw it. I'm going to go to circle. And I'm going to collect a point just in the middle of my screen, and I'm going to say that I want a diameter. So I'm going to hit D for diameter, and I'm going to say 6. So now I have a circle with a diameter, notice if I click it, of 6. And then my client really loves this. Basically, it's kind of like a modern, fancy ceiling fan. Most ceiling fans that you use are usually 4-blade or 5-blade, but this one happens to be a 3-blade. And it's a little unique. So we're going to draw a polyline. I could create it with a line, but I'm going to use a polyline. I'm going to start from the quadrant of my circle with my O-snap and go straight up 1 foot 4 inches. And then I want to create a curved arc at the end of this. So I'm going to say A for arc and hit enter. And then I'm going to make sure my ortho is on, and I'm going to go over a distance of 5. Now I want to actually create a new arc, but notice even with ortho off, I'm kind of limited on what it will create. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm just going to go to the 3-point arc. I'm going to zoom in a little. I'm going to start at the end of this arc that I already have, and I'm going to go out a little bit. For this, you can basically create your own, but I'm going to go out a little bit for my second point, and then I'm going to make it do perpendicular to my circle. Now, it didn't create the connection that I wanted here. Notice how it kind of goes in and back out. I'm going to actually undo that and do that over again with a 3-point. That's a little bit better of what I was trying to create. But you can play with it and create one that you like. Now I want to create that blade 3 times around this circle. So I'm going to use that magic button, that magic command of array. And obviously I don't want a rectangular one. I want a polar. So I'm going to select that. I want to select both of those polylines that I have. I could have joined them to create one blade, but in this case I didn't. I'm going to hit enter, and then I want the base point, because it's asking me that, to be in the center of this circle. The default is it's going to create 6. Yeah, I could create a 6-blade fan, but I just need 3. So I'm going to change this to be 3, hit enter, and I actually don't need anything else changed on this one. So I'm going to just say close array. It is associative, it is rotating them. So I'm going to just hit close. The only other thing that I need to do for this ceiling fan that they've selected is I need to offset this circle a little bit. So I've started the offset command, and I just need to offset it 1 inch. I'm going to select this circle, go in 1 inch, and now I've got basically the fan that they wanted. This one has a light in the middle. So I am actually ready to create a block. I already have my object that I need, but I don't want to repeat it and draw it every single time, especially when I had trouble with that arc in this place. So I need to make it into a block. So I'm going to go up here to where it says insert. I'm going to click that, and notice right over here we have, actually it would probably say create block like this. I practiced earlier with right block, or created a right block, so that's why it said right block, but it will say create block. So I'm going to click that, and notice I have both options, create a block and to write a block. We're also going to write a block, which they usually call a W block, but right now I need to create a block. Once I click that, this dialog box will come up with all these options that we're going to go through. First thing is the name. What do I want to call it? Well, I want to call it a fan, but I also want to say that it's a 3-blade. So I am going to actually type that in there, fan 3-blade, so that I don't get it confused with one that may have 5 or 6 blades. Then I'm going to go down here where it says base point. This is super important. You never want to just select the default or allow AutoCAD to select the default 000, because you may be way over here in your file and 00 is way back at the beginning. That means every time you insert it, it's going to put it in at 000. You might want it actually like centered in the middle of a room, or centered in the middle of something, or always in the midpoint of something. So you always want to select a point. So I'm going to say pick point. It will send me back to my block, and I have to be kind of smart about where I want that to be. Do I want to select at the end of a blade? Not really. Because then every time I insert it, I'm going to have my little cursor at the end of a blade, and that's not going to help me insert it into where I need in the drawing. I don't want to create extra work and have to move it every time. Hint, hint, when you're creating your blocks, think about where you want that insertion point to be. In this case, I want it to be right in the middle of that ceiling fan so that when I insert it, I will have that sitting at my cursor right at the center of that ceiling fan. You don't have to worry about the X and Y coordinates. That's for AutoCAD to actually remember. Oh, you want it exactly there as the pick point. Then you want to select your objects. So I'm going to actually click select objects, and I'm going to select, by doing a crossing window, all the fan blades and the actual center of that fan. Then I'm going to hit enter. It's going to send me back. And then notice you have some options under the objects. Do I want to retain the objects? Which means it'll retain all those as separate objects like you created it. Do I want to convert it to a block? Most of the time, that's actually what I want to do. Or do I want to delete it? Now, the delete option doesn't mean it deletes the block. It just deletes what you have, basically the objects that you created. It doesn't delete the block from the drawing. It just deletes what you drew. I'm going to actually select that to show that as an option. Then the behavior. Do I want it to be annotative? Do I want it to increase or decrease according to the size of my viewport? No, most of the case I do not, but that is an option that you can select by clicking it on or off. Do I want it to scale uniformly? Yeah, most of the time I do. I do want the X and the Y to scale together and not have it skewed. And then, do I want to allow exploding? What's crazy about this is when I was taught AutoCAD, you never, ever, ever exploded a block. But now, sometimes it's needed. So now, most of the time, I actually click that. By the way, you would never want to explode your dimensions. That creates all these itty bitty little pieces. But that's a side note. Do I want a description? In this case, no. It's kind of described right here, fan 3-blade. Block unit, well, we are here in the United States, so most of the time it would be in inches, but notice you can select centimeters, like if you were working in Europe, or even light years. How crazy is that? I am going to keep it in inches. And then open in block editor. If I wanted to make changes right off the fly to my block, I would actually select that. But I'm not going to do it in this case because I've already done everything I need to do. So I'm going to hit OK, and then boom. What did I say? Well, I said I wanted to delete it. So it's actually deleted that drawing from my drawing. But I'm going to go out and I'm going to get back to my floor plan. And we want to actually put it in our floor plan. So the first thing I actually want to do is I want to freeze some of these layers. I want to freeze the dim, I want to freeze the furniture, I want to freeze the title and the notes, and let's freeze the door, at least that option of the door as well. And then I want to put it on a layer that would actually make sense. So I'm actually going to go to my layer properties, which I have off to the side, and I'm going to create a new layer that I'm going to call electrical. Whoops, let's do it in all caps. Elec for electrical. And then I want to make that layer be green. So I'm going to set it to be green, and then I'm going to make it current. Now I'm actually on that layer, and I'm ready to insert a block. I'm going to go to the Insert tab again, but instead of going to Create a Block, I'm going to go over here to where it shows Insert. Now notice when I click it, it brings up all the blocks that I have currently in my drawing, which is the bed, the chair, the desk, some doors, and the new one, the fan 3-blade. But notice also what's underneath there. You can go to your favorite blocks. If you've actually created some favorites, you can go to blocks from libraries. Now, if I just click what I've created, the fan 3-blade, I don't have some options. But if I go to recent blocks, it will bring up all the recent blocks that I've used recently, but it also brings up the options down here below. So if I wanted to be able to scale it up or down, I can click this one. Now, I don't really need to change the scale in this option of a fan, but so I'm going to click off of it. But what if I wanted to rotate it? I can click that option. What if I wanted to repeat the fan, meaning I wanted to put it in different rooms all at the same time? I could have that option on. In fact, let's just keep it on just for that option to show itself. And then if I wanted to ask if I wanted to explode it or not, I would click that one on. Then I'm going to go up here and select, okay, I do want the fan 3-blade. And then notice it immediately comes in on your cursor where you have your base point. So here's where it shows how important it would be to have it at the center of my fan. So I'm going to zoom in and I want to hover at the midpoint of this wall. And how about the midpoint of this window? let the tracking do its thing, and then click. And then notice, because I had rotation on, it allows me to rotate it at whatever degrees I want it to rotate. If I actually had my polar on and I let it snap to 45 degrees, I can actually have it at 45 degrees compared to the way I drew it, which was this option. I would have to actually click instead of hit enter, because if I hit enter, it will go to the default of 0. But I'm going to actually click at 45 degrees. Now it's actually at the 45 degrees. But because I said repeat, it's allowing me to repeat inserting it. So let's say I wanted it, oh, crazy, like in the closet. I don't know if I'd really want that, but let's say they do. They want a fan in the closet. And if I don't say that I want to click at 45 degrees but hit enter, it will put it at the 0. If they wanted one maybe at the other side of the room, exactly aligned with that one, I could do that option. And then I could hit enter to say, yes, I want it at 0 instead of 45. And then enter again will just kick me back out of the block command. So I'm completely finished with inserting that block. And what's cool is you can create as many number of blocks that you want. This is now a full entity. It shows what layer it's on. It shows what the block name is. Even the rotation, which is interesting because I thought I had it at 45 degrees, but it was slightly off. Look at that. Good way to check your work, right? Another thing that I want to show you is to write a block, which is the W block that I showed you before. It is right here on your ribbon. And write block means that it turns the block into an actual drawing file. So it's going to save it on your computer system as a separate drawing. You have this fan in this drawing, but that's the only place it is right now. It's only in this drawing. So if I actually went to this drawing and said insert, notice it's not even there. If I go to recent blocks, it's not even there. Now it is showing it here, but it's saying, oh, well, it's in another drawing. It's actually, in your system, but within this current drawing, it's not there. So I want to write it so that it is in my actual drawing file. So I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to say I want to right block it. I want to select that it's a block already in my drawing. I could do the entire drawing, but that would be crazy. I could actually select some objects in my drawing that maybe I have not made into a block yet, but I already know this one exists in this drawing. So I'm going to say, yeah, I want a block, and then I have to find where it is if I have more than one. Because right now I have some doors, chairs, beds, but I want to right block or W block that fan. So I'm going to select that. Now this is where you say where you want it in your system. I believe I already have one in documents, but I could actually go to the 3 dots and select what folder and where I want it in my system. You probably want it in documents, so you would want to select the right folder that you have, etc. I've already created this one in documents just as an example for myself, so I'm going to let it overwrite it. I'm going to hit OK. Yes, I do want to replace it because I've already created it, but now I can use it in any drawing I have. So I'm going to go back to this drawing and I'm going to say insert, and I'm going to go to blocks from libraries, and then I'm going to actually go into my system and find where I saved it, which happens to be right there. I'm going to say open, And it's going to go through and kind of go look for it. And then I have to click it to actually use it. And because I'm on layer 0, it's white. And I'm going to try to put it in the center of this room. It still has the option to rotate it if I want it rotated. So let's see if it'll let me do it 45. And I still have it on repeat. So I'm going to hit enter just to say I just want one. And then because it came in on layer 0, because that was my current layer, I'm going to change it to the correct layer of electrical. And then I have a fan in this drawing as well. You could put it in any drawing that you have on your system. So I've created a 3-blade fan. I've inserted into both this drawing and in another drawing. But just as a review, I'm going to go over here to, well, actually, I don't even have it open. I am going to go to the View tab, and I'm going to select my tool palettes. So that brings up over here. And most of the time, we've been using architectural. We've used a toilet. We've used a window. Notice we also have the vehicles and trees that we looked at before. But I also wanted to show that there are mechanical ones. So if you wanted to insert a shoulder screw, it comes in really tiny. So I'm going to kind of zoom in here. But with that one, you can actually select the thread size of maybe an M5. You can select a length, either 5/16 or maybe a 1/2 inch. So you could use mechanical blocks over here and they are dynamic blocks, which means they have different options. So we could use that. We could maybe bring in a aluminum window. So I'm going to zoom out for that one because that's a little bit bigger than that little screw. And we have the options with this one to change maybe the width of 4 feet, maybe a height of 5 feet. And notice those options are also available right on the window itself. So you can bring it either out or in to those sizes that you need. But what I also wanted to show you is another one. I'm going to go to my layout that we've been using with this drawing. Let's bring this in so we don't actually see that little window. And maybe I wanted to move this drawing up so it was even with this one. But I also want to show you what I use all the time, which is on the annotative tab. And I do use imperial because we're here in the US compared to metric, but they do have both of them, both options available. And I am going to make sure I'm on the title layer. So I'm going to thaw that and I'm going to make sure I'm on it. And notice right now we have our fan actually showing in this drawing. If I didn't want it to show, I would double click and then go up to those layers and actually viewport freeze that from that layer. I could do the same also and make sure that my furniture showed or whatever else I needed to show. But what I want to show you is actually this one right over here called Drawing Title Imperial. It's going to come in on my title layer, but I'm going to click that and it's on my cursor, little hidden, but it's on my cursor, and I'm going to click underneath my drawing of a floor plan. Now it gives you options from that. If I single click, I can change the values. I can't change any other options, but I can change the values. So I could go in here and say, okay, I want it to not say view title. I want it to actually say floor plan. And then the scale wouldn't be 1:1, but it would actually be 1/4 inch equals 1 foot and 0 inches. Now that's assuming that that's actually what this drawing is. And then the number, yeah, I want it to stay at number 1. And then I would hit escape to get out of there. But let's actually check to see what the plan scale is. When I click that, it says that it's 3/16 down here at the bottom and not 1/4 inch. So if I wanted it to be correct, I would actually say, oh, you know what? This is 3/16, not 1/4 inch, which would be odd to have it at that scale, but that's what it says. And then I actually want this text to match this text over here. I don't want it to be this text that is the default for AutoCAD, which kind of drives me crazy that I can't change that. But in order to change the text style to match this, I would double click it instead of single click it. And then notice it shows the view name, the drawing name. It does show my correction of floor plan, but I also have these text options up here. So I'm going to click the text option, and then notice it says Textile Tahoma. That is the default. I can't change that. So I do need to change it to be the correct text style. Now, before I change it, note, it is crucial to look at your justification, because it will change once I change the text style. So I'm going to memorize that it's at bottom left. So make a note or memorize bottom left. Then I'm going to go up here. I'm going to select, oh, I want stylus. That's what I've been using. And then notice once I do that, it does change it where it's located. It's not in the correct position. So I'm going to go down here and say bottom left, which is what it was at. And then notice you do have some other options. I normally do not need to change any of these. I do not need to change any of the properties, but you do have that option. But it is now in the correct text style for just that one piece of the actual title. I do need to go back to attribute and say, oh, I need to change the view number to be the correct text style. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go back to the text options. I'm going to memorize the justification as middle center, and I'm going to change that to also be stylus. Then I can change the justification to middle center, so it puts it back in the middle of that circle. And then I do need to change the last piece, which is the scale, because right now that is looking really different compared to the other text styles. So I'm going to select the viewport scale. I'm going to go back to text options, memorize the justification as top right. I'm going to change it to stylus, go back to justification and say top, what was it? It was top right. It didn't look very different in this example, but it would change it. And so now I have all of my text styles that I need, which is absolutely crucial that you do that. And then I'm going to say, okay. The only other thing is that I need to do is I need to click it, and I need to use this cute little arrow, which actually says what it does, sets the title line length. And I'm going to pull it so it's totally under my drawing. Most firms like it if the actual title goes totally under and isn't just hugged over here on the left. And then I would have to put a title under this one as well, which let's freeze. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's actually freeze the viewport layer so you can see the two drawings, what they would look like on the paper. But if I go over here to drawing title and click it, notice it comes in with all those textiles the old way? Well, I don't want to go through that entire process all over again, right? I want to save some time. So I'm going to use the cheat method, which is to copy this one and then with my ortho on, move it under this drawing, and then I'm going to just change what's there. So I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to say, oh, this is actually the bath plan, and the number is actually number 2. So I'm going to say, okay, and then I can pull this little line length over so it fits underneath the bath plan. Now, yes, normally titles are exactly lined up with each other. If I wanted to move this drawing lower, maybe make it more pleasant to view on my actual sheet, I may do that, and I may actually move all of these pieces. But this is just showing you how normally titles are lined up. So, I believe you are set. You can now create some blocks. You can write some blocks, create some W blocks, and you can use a drawing title now on your sheets, which, hint, hint, we are going to be doing. So have fun with those blocks and awesome AutoCAD.